Comedy beefs are no laughing matter. As far back as most of us can remember, the goal of video games has boiled down to one simple concept: don't die. The performers who bring us to hysterical tears can actually be a cutthroat bunch who steal each other's work, trash each other in the press, and even, in some rare cases, come to blows. Whether your gaming reference point starts with, "Don't let the Space Invaders blow up your ship," "Don't let Mario get touched by pretty much anything," or, "Just be the last man standing," the general goal of most games is to keep your character alive. That's why it can be so shocking when you're put into a situation where you cannot survive. It goes against every fiber of our being when a video game puts us in a situation from which we are not intended to make it out alive. Saturday Night Live produced a number of such beefs, with former cast members bickering relentlessly during the 40-plus-year history of the show. Elsewhere in the world of jokes, several stand-up comics have duked it out over allegations of stolen material, like Joe Rogan and Carlos Menstelia's infamous on-stage 2007 feud, and Louis C.K.'s similar spats with Dennis Leary and Dane Cook, the latter of which even inspired an episode of C.K.'s FX series. While a number of these feuds ended with the passage of time, nearly 30 years for Wayne and Garth, some seem to be in it for the long haul. Don't expect to see David Cross and Larry the Cable Guy doing a festival tour together. What do you get when you combine a couple comedians and a little animosity? You get beef. Bad jokes aside, let's take a look at some of the biggest beefs among comedians. Buds for life. Not quite when Chevy Chase abruptly left Saturday Night Live at the end of the second season to pursue a movie career, a number of his castmates were understandably bitter. With some games, the main character's death plays as the cap to the storytelling. Like the greatest tragic heroes, death is the only way their story can truly end. Other times, it introduces us to new mechanics or helps pass the torch along to another character's point of view. Bill Murray, the up-and-coming comedian and Chase's replacement on SNL, expressed his displeasure with Chase when he returned to host a few seasons later. Tensions built throughout the week between the entire cast and Chase, with Murray setting off a shouting match followed later by a physical altercation just before the show went live. If done thoughtfully, killing off the player character can be one of the most effective items in the storytelling toolbox. We're taking a look at some of the most surprising and intense moments where you had no choice but to let your character die. Chase confronted Murray and Jim Belushi's dressing room and the two threw punches, but were quickly pulled apart according to Saturday Night, a backstage history of Saturday Night Live. Less than 2 years later, Chase and Murray buried the hatchet on the set of Caddyshack. According to Chris Nashawati's book Caddyshack, The Making of a Hollywood Cinderella Story, Murray said, "We didn't do many takes. Just 2 or 3. Grab your one-up before moving forward. I'd never really done anything with Chevy. We'd always had a sort of funny relationship. You're gonna need it." Red Dead Redemption stages a desperate final stand. Blessed be the peacemakers. Red Dead Redemption told quite a yarn, and its final story quest is one of the most impactful endings in recent memory. The Last Enemy That Shall Be Destroyed puts to rest the compelling story of John Marston, as shady government man Edgar Ross finally finishes him off. The way the mission plays out gives it the oomph needed to cap off Red Dead's sprawling narrative. John's character arc is all about finding that titular redemption, and it seems he has at least achieved some semblance of it by turning over the members of his old gang and retiring to his ranch with his wife and son. But it was like, okay, I liked that when you did that. Let's just keep going. Decades after the backstage spat, Murray downplayed the whole thing to Empire Online, saying, "It was really a Hollywood fight, a don't touch my face kind of thing. We all felt mad he had left us, and somehow I was the anointed avenging angel. But Chevy and I are friends now. It's all fine." Joe Rogan calls out Carlos Menstelia. Joe Rogan and Carlos Menstelia didn't come to blows in 2007, but their on-stage fight over Menstelia's alleged joke theft still stunned the Comedy Store audience. For the Times-Herald record, it started when Rogan called Menstelia, effectively accusing Menstelia in public of plagiarizing multiple comics. Menstelia then stormed the stage and confronted Rogan. Their colorful exchange was all caught on video, and had a profound effect on both comics' careers. Rogan was banned from the Comedy Store and was subsequently dropped by his agency after refusing to apologize to Menstelia. Red Dead could never end on such a satisfying note, though. John's history is too checkered and his motivations too selfish. When the militia comes to call on Marston, he finally has a chance to earn what he seeks. By walking out the front door and confronting the gunman, Marston is able to buy his family time to escape. Entering dead-eye mode and engaging in a suicidal shootout with Ross and the soldiers is a fantastic final stand and a fitting end to Marston's story. But Rogan eventually emerged from the fracas unscathed. It was so powerful that Kotaku even asserted that Red Dead Redemption 2 was wrong to tell a prequel story involving Marston's time with the Van der Linde gang. A longtime UFC announcer, actor and reality show host, Rogan went on to launch a successful podcast. He even returned to the Comedy Store after 7 years away. For Menstelia, the backlash was far more severe. After video of the showdown with Rogan went viral, Menstelia was quickly labeled a joke stealer. Of course, RDR2 turned out just fine. BioShock Infinite Has You Die to Save the Multiverse. BioShock Infinite had pretty big shoes to fill. Less than a year later his hit Comedy Central show Mind of Menstelia was over. However, Menstelia characterized his exit from the show and subsequent absence from the spotlight as a self-imposed exile per NJ.com. He also told the outlet he never had beef with Rogan, he had beef with me. As far as whether he ever owned up to stealing jokes, the truth lies somewhere between his 2010 admission of F***k yeah, of course I F***ing steal jokes, to his 2017 denial in which he said, none of my accusers have proof. Did Louis C.K. let Dane Cook get publicly roasted? Dane Cook was one of the most popular comics on the planet in the mid-2000s, but accusations of joke stealing by Louis C.K. BioShock 2 is an underrated gem. But fans were still looking for a true follow-up to the original games. Would you kindly reveal? Help send Cook's career on a downward spiral. According to Vulture, Cook was widely accused of ripping off a trio of jokes from CK's 2001 Live in Houston for his 2005 hit album, Retaliation. BioShock Infinite swung for the fences by going all in on the infinite aspect of its name, and it's an ending that has aged pretty well in the grand scheme of things. In BioShock Infinite, players take on the role of Booker DeWitt, struggling to stop Zachary Comstock and his xenophobic followers from seizing control of reality itself. Although CK Comstock is portrayed as the ultimate villain, arrogant, powerful, and prophetic, he is the exact type of character you hate to be pitted against and can't wait to beat. That's what makes BioShock Infinite's finale work so well. Never outright accused Cook of theft, he didn't exactly defend him, instead telling Movie Line per Vulture that Cook probably saw his bit and subconsciously made it his own. The ending is complex, but here's a SparkNotes version. The joke theft claims contributed to an overall decline in Cook's popularity, according to The Hollywood Reporter. When everything plays out, it turns out that Booker is Comstock from another reality, and the only way he can stop Comstock's rise is by going back in time and committing suicide. Booker chooses to prevent Comstock's existence by drowning himself during his baptism, causing an abrupt cut to black upon Comstock Booker's death. Creepy. Metal Gear Solid 3 shows the consequences of your murderous actions. The Metal Gear Solid series is known for several different things, but pretty much every gamer can agree that the games have a bizarre but fantastic story and some amazing boss fights. One of the most effective combinations of those is the battle with the Sorrow in Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater. Here's the setup. The Sorrow is the father of Ocelot, one of the most recognizable and irritatingly long-lived villains in the entire series. He is also dead for the entirety of MGS3. As for how Cook felt about CK, the player only encounters him after they also die, setting up a fascinating encounter in the River of Death. In a scene where the player must jump over a waterfall, protagonist Naked Snake doesn't survive the fall. Allowing the accusations to persist? I think he knew that he could be more popular talking about why I shouldn't be popular, Cook said, adding, it helped him, it really did. But he awakens anyway in a burning river, where the ghost of the Sorrow taunts him. Every enemy the player has killed throughout the game throws themselves at Snake, meaning more pacifist players will have less to deal with. When the player finally catches the Sorrow, Snake dies yet again. It was like he was on a press tour because of it. The two attempted to bury the hatchet in 2011 by filming a scene about the issue for CK's FX series Louis. But you can take a pill to wake Snake up, which is the only way to progress through. It's a haunting scene and an interesting rumination on death in video games. MGS3 has a powerful and effective story to tell, and the Sorrow's role in things is a big part of that. Bloodborne's first enemy tears you to shreds. The entirety of Bloodborne, the spiritual successor to Dark Souls, could probably qualify for this list. It's all pretty intense, and you're probably going to die a lot. The first boss, though, stands out. When you encounter the cleric beast, totally unarmed and unprepared, it is supposed to kill you to introduce the player to the hunter's dream. From there, the player is supposed to make their way back to the arena and fight back against the massive beast with some real equipment. Technically, you can beat the cleric beast with your bare hands, in the same way that you can technically beat Dark Souls with a Guitar Hero controller. For him to call and say, "Let's put this thing to rest," I was like, yeah, amen. It can be done, that doesn't mean it will be done. In fact, if you do somehow manage to take out the cleric beast without dying, you will have to find a place to die eventually. The hunter's dream is an essential spot to hit. It is a shocking moment nonetheless. The cleric beast is the first encounter in Bloodborne, and it tears most first-time players to shreds. Final Fantasy X's last boss defends the dream similar to Metal Gear Solid. The storylines in Final Fantasy games can go big and go deep. Final Fantasy X was no exception, weaving together plenty of philosophical ideas across its massive narrative. Please, Cook told Entertainment Weekly. Cook didn't have much to say when CK was accused of sexual misconduct in 2017, but according to The Hollywood Reporter, Cook's CK karma joke during his 2019 comedy tour suggests this beef isn't quite bygones being bygones. Party time was not excellent for Wayne and Garth. It's hard to think of Mike Myers and Dana Carvey as anything but two long-haired best friends, but beef supposedly ensued after the making of Wayne's World in 1992, leading to an alleged estrangement, punctuated with only a few, rare joint public appearances. According to Rolling Stone, Myers became unhappy with director Penelope Spheris, and tightened his creative control over the characters, which may not have sat well with Carvey. We could probably write a doctoral dissertation on everything that happens in FFX, but here's the basic concept behind its tragic ending. FFX is a story about the relationship between two central characters, Titus and Yuna. After the sequel, Myers and Carvey reportedly barely spoke, and things allegedly escalated into further silence when Myers unveiled his doctor throughout the course of the game. You learn that Titus is actually a dream memory of a long-dead person, given form by the Faith, which are also spirits of the dead. Following along so far? When the final boss is defeated, the Faith lose their ability to exist in the mortal plane. Evil character in Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery a few years later. Since Titus is merely a dream of these spirits, defeating the final boss in FFX also means that the central character will lose his place in the world. This speculation was due to Carvey's strikingly similar Lorne Michaels impression from their days on Saturday Night Live. However, Carvey downplayed any notion of a feud over it. "When I saw Mike do it, I did kind of go, Carvey told The Howard Stern Show in 2016, but he added, "We were never meant to be a comedy team. Mike just invited me into the sketch. But I'm really grateful that he did." Carvey and Myers reunited at the 2019 Academy Awards to introduce Bohemian Rhapsody for Best Picture, with Myers reportedly saying on the red carpet he had so much fun with his old friend during rehearsals. It's bittersweet to watch Titus and Yuna attempt to hug one another at the end of the game. Since it's Final Fantasy, you've spent a lot of time with these characters. The Walking Dead, Season 1 delivers a gut punch worthy of the source material. Telltale really hit the nail on the head with their first season of The Walking Dead. Could that long-rumored Wayne's World 3 be on the horizon? Just a couple of a-holes. Dennis Leary has been accused of stealing jokes before, but Louis C.K. Many of their later games were accused of being derivative, and the studio's surprising shutdown lends a bit of credence to the criticism surrounding them, but the story of Lee and Clementine was pretty remarkable. Had some beef of his own with Leary, claiming that he swiped a bit and turned it into the 1994 song, A****hole. The song propelled Leary to stardom, but CK claimed in 2008 on the Opie and Anthony show that Leary stole the bit the song was based on from him. He started riffing on my bit, but acknowledging that he just watched me do it, which I think is okay, CK. And, if you were at all familiar with the comics or television show the game was based on, you probably had a pretty good idea that things weren't going to turn out great for one or both of the main characters. Do your choices in the game matter in the outcome of the story? Yes and no, Lee is always going to get bitten," said on the program. But it affects the type of story the game tells, who the characters are, and what the player takes away from the ending. It's tough when you are given the option to put Lee out of his misery, but tough decisions are what The Walking Dead is all about. Halo Reach gives you a suicide mission to save the human race. Death is an inevitability in real life, and that inevitability is often one of the keys to telling a tragic tale. Not only was Halo Reach a powerful prequel story in the already fascinating Halo universe, it was also Bungie's goodbye to the series as a whole. A month later, he's just doing the bit. Years after the song was a hit, Leary sent several $1,000s to CK. Halo Reach closes out with a desperate final stand, featuring similar beats and even a similar final shot to the wonderful ending of Red Dead Redemption. It doesn't feel like your sacrifice is for nothing. It is entirely necessary to complete the story in a satisfying way. Halo Reach sees you take control of a soldier in the legendary Noble team, and your central objective in the game is to give humanity a fighting chance against the ruthless Covenant forces. After achieving your team's goal and setting up events for the previously released Halo Combat Evolved, there is one final epilogue mission to play through. The game gives you a singular goal: survive. It becomes apparent pretty quickly that this simple direction is impossible, as bigger and bigger forces hit the ground and threaten to overrun your defenses. Your character, Noble 6, eventually falls in the battle. The scene even divided the Bungie staff before release, but it turned out to help tell a fantastic story that filled out the mythology of the Halo universe. Final Fantasy II forces you to kill your evil past self. This one's sort of a symbolic death, but it still packs a punch. To help finance a film, which CK. The transformation scene in Final Fantasy II, Final Fantasy IV in Japan, likely left many players confused as to how they were supposed to kill Cecil's Dark Knight form as the newly minted Paladin version of the same character. Later viewed as a payoff. CK did, however, say that Leary was always generally kind to him, and that he never said anything before being prompted by the shock jocks to talk about it, because it would have felt hypocritical. Days later, on the same show, Leary shot back, "Lewis, by the way, the money I gave you to make that movie was not guilt money. I had no idea you thought I stole your material. I actually believed in you as a filmmaker. Even with all the clues in the dialogue, our brains are wired differently when playing video games, we're not supposed to die." Cecil battling against his past misdeeds and anger is a pretty impressive bit of storytelling for a creatively translated 16-bit RPG. Rather than fighting back, Paladin Cecil simply needs to absorb hits and defend himself, showing that he has transcended beyond his anger and has what it takes to battle against Golbas. In doing so, he is able to kill his former self and continue his adventure as a brand new man. Period. The two buried the hatchet in 2015. According to Leary, who told the Daily Beast, "The more famous all of us got, the grudges fell off to the side." Lovitz deals with some dickish behavior. Andy Dick has certainly ruffled a few feathers with his outrageous behavior through the years, but his comments about the death of Phil Hartman earned him a beatdown from fellow funnyman, John Lovitz. It all started when Lovitz replaced Phil Hartman, his close friend, on news radio in 1998 after Hartman was shot and killed in his sleep by his wife, Bryn, who then took her own life. Lovitz accused Dick of aiding Bryn's drug relapse after a decade of sobriety. She was reportedly on cocaine, alcohol and an antidepressant, per CNN, on the day of the grisly murder-suicide. Later on, Dick and I made up, Lovitz told Dennis Miller, per CBS News. For its time, it's a pretty deep plot twist that forces the player to rewire how they've tackled battles up to that point. I realized it really wasn't his fault. Norrie delivers a true noir ending. Everything was fine for years. Then it wasn't. During a visit to Lovitz's restaurant in 2006, Dick told Lovitz, "I put the Phil Hartman hex on you, you're the next one to die." Lovitz then tossed Dick and company out. A year later, their paths crossed again at the Laugh Factory. Norrie was a bit ahead of its time. After seeking out Dick in the bar area and failing to get an apology, Lovitz erupted. We've seen plenty of film noir stories in, well, film, but to put a video game player into the shoes of a totally flawed and unlikable protagonist like Cole Phelps meant taking some serious storytelling risks that alienated a lot of players. Retrospectives on L.A. John picked Andy up by the head and smashed him into the bar 4 or 5 times, and blood started pouring out of his nose, Laugh Factory owner Jamie Masada told Page 6. Dick has never publicly commented on the fight, but Lovitz's characterization of him as a disgusting human being doesn't indicate hope for a reconciliation. Feuds brew at SNL. Norm Macdonald is a tell-you-to-your-face kind of guy, but his comments about fellow Saturday Night Live actor Chris Kattan set off a bitter feud between the two. "I don't find him funny. Norrie cast a much more favorable light on the game. Never made me laugh," Macdonald told Rolling Stone in 1997. He also doled out some homophobic commentary, to which, not surprisingly, Kattan didn't take kindly. Kotaku sums it up nicely, stating that Phelps' death was inevitable, he's in way too deep to avoid drowning. The most shocking aspect of Phelps' death is how pointless it all seems. If Norm says I'm gay, then put in that I say he's an A*****, Kattan told the mag. Macdonald was famous, or infamous, for being merciless when he found a soft spot. His story has already begun to wind down, as he has been demoted to the arson unit by the time the final curtain falls. Even the villain in the final showdown is a character who was created directly due to Phelps' mistakes and trust in a corrupt system. Norm would rip Mr. It may come as quite a shock to many players when Phelps dies rescuing an old friend, but that's kind of the ultimate theme to the game's story. We aren't always the hero we think we are. Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons makes powerful use of gameplay mechanics. Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons tells a powerful story despite its short runtime, and its unique mechanics help to drive home the impact of its final moments. Polygon writes that the developers didn't even intend for it to be a puzzle game, in the traditional sense. It is meant solely to be a storytelling experience, and the ending packs quite an emotional punch. Brothers tasks you with controlling 2 characters at once, with each analog stick on the controller moving one of the characters. Kattan to his face, a source close to SNL told Observer. The feud got bad enough that when Macdonald returned to host in 1999, Kattan was noticeably absent from the episode. Kattan still had an axe to grind in 2015 when he accused Macdonald of physically and sexually abusing an assistant per The Blaze. However, a few months later, Kattan tweeted that their feud was satiric and only for comedic purposes. Kattan ran into personal troubles post-SNL that likely stemmed from a broken neck he suffered during an SNL sketch. Throughout the game, you are taught to rely on this sense of teamwork, and it becomes difficult to imagine completing certain tasks without both characters being involved. When one of the brothers dies near the game's end, tasks that were once simple become seemingly insurmountable. In an exceptionally powerful moment, however, using the memory of the missing brother, by still using the left stick, as you once did, allows the surviving one to swim, something he has been unable to do on his own up to this point in the game. It's a small moment, gameplay-wise, but it shows the impact that effective mechanics can have on telling a powerful story. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 courts controversy. Call of Duty may have shed its cinematic single-player mode in Black Ops 4, but the COD franchise helped to reshape the shooter as we know it. Modern Warfare 2 played a big role in this. Its 2 big deaths helped shape the overarching story of the series for several games, and one of those deaths is also part of a hugely controversial element in the Call of Duty timeline. The controversy surrounds a mission entitled, No Russian. In it, you play as an undercover American agent working with Russian superterrorist Vladimir Makarov. You participate in walking through an airport, gunning down hordes of unarmed civilians. After multiple surgeries, he became addicted to opioids, a revelation made in his 2019 memoir Baby Don't Hurt Me. It's unclear where Kattan and Macdonald stand, as of this writing, but considering Kattan didn't slam Macdonald in the book, that's a pretty big clue. Bill Cosby plays morality police. The feud between these 2 titans of comedy began when Bill Cosby allegedly tried to rein in Eddie Murphy's brand of vulgar humor. Murphy took exception to Cosby's moral superiority in his explosive 1987 stand-up routine, Raw, unleashing a spot on Cosby impression and a slew of curse words describing a conversation between the two. It's such a disturbing moment that the game even offers to let you skip it.
The idea is that you're trying to earn Makarov's trust, but it's all for naught. Makarov knows you are a double agent and kills you as soon as the massacre is complete, with the event eventually leading to the Russian-American War. Even more impactful is the turncoat Shepard, who kills fan-favorite characters Ghost and Roach. It shows Shepard's true colors as a co-conspirator of Makarov's, and is especially painful because of how difficult, and plot-pivotal, the mission is leading up to Shepard's betrayal. When Delaware Online asked Cosby about Murphy's infamous bit in 2007, Cosby called Murphy a very nasty, nasty liar, and claimed he only called the younger comic to tell him to stop saying how much money he made on stage. The feud faded over time and died out during Cosby's failed fight against numerous accusations of sexual assault. He was sentenced to 3 to 10 years in prison in 2018. Amid the allegations, Murphy balked at playing Cosby during Saturday Night Live's 40th anniversary special. There's nothing funny about it. It gives the player plenty of drive to make it through the final few missions to take revenge on their former commanding officer. If you get up there and you crack jokes about Cosby, you're just hurting people, Murphy told Vanity Fair in 2015. In response to Murphy's decision, Cosby told NBC, "I am very appreciative of Eddie and I applaud his actions." However, Murphy's moratorium on Cosby jokes ended a few months later. While accepting the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor, Murphy let loose on the sitcom star, dusting off his profanity-laced impression after nearly 30 years away from the stage. "Bill has one of these," Murphy said, looking at a bust of Mark Twain. "Did y'all make Bill give his back?" The Queen of Mean goes raw. Joan Rivers certainly earned her moniker as the Queen of Mean, and she didn't hold back when talking about former colleague Chelsea Handler. But the younger comedian didn't exactly pull her punches. In the first of two back-to-back interviews with Howard Stern in January 2012, Handler said, "What the F***k do I care about Joan Rivers?" The next day, Rivers showed up to the Shock Jocks studio, countering with, "Number 1, Handler made it on her back, ing the president of the network, we all know that." She added, "Number 2, she's fine, she's ordinary. She's not a genius." Shots fired. A few years later, they were still swinging, with Handler telling The Guardian in June 2014 she didn't think of Rivers as a role model. 1 month later, Rivers told HuffPost that Handler started the whole thing. She came out saying things like, "I'm the first woman ever to do a late-night show," Rivers said, adding, "She did this one day, and I followed her on the dais and I said, I guess everyone's forgotten the Carson show." She never spoke to me again. Rivers died in September 2014 during a routine surgery, putting a tragic end to a beef that was surely far from over. However, in 2016, Handler gave Rivers a nod for paving the way for female comics. "Joan Rivers and I weren't friends," Handler said. "But she did definitely open so many doors for me." Larry the Cable Guy in the crosshairs. This beef was one of the more personal, but it played out mostly through the written word. Cross told Rolling Stone, per HuffPost, about Larry the Cable Guy's act, "It's a lot of anti-gay, racist humor, which people like in America, all couched in, I'm telling it like it is. He's in the right place at the right time for that. Gee shucks, proud to be a redneck, I'm just a straight shooter multi-millionaire in cut-off flannel selling ringtones act." Larry the Cable Guy dedicated a chapter in his 2006 book, Get R Done, to say that he was being attacked by a member of the PC police that didn't know his audience and cited Cross as one of those humorless comedians who act like they're better than everyone else. The Arrested Development star hit back with an open letter to Larry the Cable Guy. "I do know your audience," Cross wrote, "and they suck. And they're simple. Since I was a kid I've always been a little oversensitive to the glorification and rewarding of the dumb. Ouch. Safe to say these two won't be playing any of the same venues anytime soon."